Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm super excited to talk to Kelsey today about her European road trip. So, thanks for coming on and sharing about your trip. So, first of all, what inspired you to take this road trip through Europe?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to share with your followers and listeners a little bit about my trip. Honestly, the inspiration was COVID. After being at home for, 18 plus months, I was just ready for an adventure, ready for a trip. I had a lot of time to think about the planning because I was at home. So yeah, that was the inspiration, was just like, let's go somewhere new, visit places we've never been and have some fun.
So, tell me a little bit about the where you went, when you went, what, choosing where you chose to go.
Yeah, it was really my friend and I had traveled together, and so we kind of had sat down and listed countries that or cities that neither of us had been, and that we wanted to explore. And we kind of settled on like the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and then we were thinking about maybe Austria. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And then we sort of refined it from there based on how to get there and what cities we could realistically drive to in like, a reasonable period. We didn't want to be spending like all day in the car if possible. So that was kind of the criteria that we used. So we started our trip in Berlin. We had both been very interested in going to some of their Holocaust museums and seeing the Berlin Wall, and there's a lot of attractions in Berlin. So that was kind of like our hub to start. And then from there, we started driving to south. So initially, we went to like Prague, and then we went to Bratislava, and then we went to Hungary. We went to Budapest, and we went to another town called Eger. And then we headed back north, and then we went to Warsaw and then Krakow in Poland, and then we ended up back in Berlin for our flight out. So that was kind of the criteria and the route that we took, just based on logistics.
So, when you rented the car, is there any like things people need to think about, like driving from country to country, since these are all separate countries too?
Yes, separate countries, all in the Eurozone, but yeah, they all have different, like, different rules and regulations. One thing I would think about is looking up tolls. We were very unaware of tolls. And so even like after the trip, we were still getting, like, you passed through our country and did not pay the toll. So even after the trip was over, we were still getting notices about paying tolls. Um, but yeah, because in a rental car, you don't have, a lot of
Right.
like they have the sticker for like you pass through the highway. So that was the one thing we were probably the most unaware of. Otherwise, I would say it was pretty smooth. The rental process was very similar to what you would rent a car in the US. Um, and yeah, it was a nice car. It was a hybrid.
Oh, wow.
It was very comfortable. Like, it was an SUV. It was very great. I mean, we that part was very easy. But yeah, I would say like the tolling, we were just unaware of what that would look like, and there were no toll booths
Oh,
open. So the expectation was obviously that you
yeah.
had like the pass on your car, but it was a rental. We didn't know that, and the rental car company definitely didn't give us any information about that. So yeah, I would say that was the one thing logistically about renting the car.
So, when you rented the car, did you have to show anything other than like your passport or US driver's license or?
Yes, actually, thank you. Yeah, we did need an international driver's license to get that to rent the car. But we did know that in advance, so I had an international driver's license that I got from the AAA.
Yep.
It's about like $20 to $25 in America. If you're a member too, it's even cheaper, which I happen to be a member. So yeah, I think it was like $20. It's very easy. to get at AAA. They'll take the passport because you need like photos on it. They'll
Yeah.
take the photos for you. They'll do all of it. It literally takes about 10 minutes. So yeah, that's very easy. But yes, we did need that in Berlin, in addition to passport and the American driver's license as well.
Oh, good. Were there any other unexpected challenges on the road trip that you encountered?
Yeah, we actually when we were in Warsaw, we had a flat tire.
Oh,
So that was like very just obnoxious in general to deal with. And we were very lucky that we did not get stuck on like a highway or somewhere. I mean, we were safe. We just walked out in the morning. We were leaving to go to Krakow and walked out in the morning and found a flat tire. And so we were able to still drive it to somewhere safe where we could get a new car. But it was probably like a 4 hour delay
oh,
for them to get us a new car. We had purchased insurance because we knew we were traveling in very like just unknown places for us. So we had gotten insurance on the car. So that was very lucky. Um, so yeah, they did replace the car for us.
oh, nice.
It just took a long time. So that was definitely a setback. Otherwise, I would say the like there's small things about like finding parking when you're in the city, or one time we did get like one of those bars that they put on your tires so that you
Oh,
can't like drive away because you parked in like a non-parking zone.
right.
So then you have to wait for the police to come to unlock this bar off your tire. So we did have that, but otherwise, it's the same like logistics that we deal with driving in America in a big city where you have to find parking. You often have to pay for parking, things like that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, otherwise I wouldn't say that the logistics of the car were any more difficult than other modes of transportation that you use when you're on vacation. So,
Yeah, and you had the benefit of coming and going then when you wanted. Because I know right before we got on
yes,
to chat, you were talking about trying to think about taking the trains and taking like these little flights. And so in the end, you
yes,
chose to rent the car.
yes. And those respects, yeah, I mean, the car is so freeing, right? Like, oh, okay, we need to grab some food on the way. Okay, that's, excuse me, that's an extremely easy thing to do, right? Like, we're just going to grab a sandwich as we're getting to the highway. I mean, these are like, it does make it so much easier for a lot of those little things. And you're not racing from one place to the other, wanting to make sure that you make your train or your flight. And also because there was a COVID outbreak at the time, it also was somewhat more comfortable for us to go around because we didn't have to
Oh,
wear masks on transport or be subject to any of those like regulations of continuously showing your vaccination status and all
yeah.
of those things, because Europe was very strict about even like some of the museums we would have to show our vax card.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, because it was like November of 2021, so they were having a pretty significant outbreak in the area that we were in at the time. So yeah, it made a lot of things easier having the car. You also don't worry about how much stuff you have
Yeah.
because you're not continuously having to pack it up. I mean, there's just some kind of little things that are helpful as you're going along the way, or like, hey, we can buy some wine and drink it over the trip, or
Right.
different things like
Yeah.
that. It's just so much easier. Or like we had a little cooler bag so that we could buy food and take that with us. So yeah, there's some things that are easier about the car than other modes of transportation for sure.
And budget wise, you brought up a couple good points because you could, it sounded like, again, before we got on, you were, like many of us, we're looking at traveling more on a budget this year. And in general, I
Mhm.
mean, things have just gotten super expensive. Even if you're in the States, going out for dinner anymore is just crazy. So,
Yeah.
how did you plan that in? Was it choices you made for lodging? Maybe you mentioned a little bit, I think now with the cooler.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say for the budgeting, I mean, the car definitely, I think even between the car rental price and the gas and the tolls, was still cheaper than two people for all of the trains and planes and taxis. Like we didn't need really taxis ever, which was very convenient. So yeah, that the part that we really saved on though was staying in like Airbnbs. And then yes, we basically did all our own food. We ate out minimally, I would say maybe every other day, but most times we were doing like charcuterie or things that we could find, in markets. We went to a lot of markets, so we would grab some like fresh food, or we would go out to a local restaurant, or grab a sandwich in like a bodega. So we definitely were, yeah, budget friendly in terms of like just being aware of how easy it is to spend money.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did really well. I would say, I think if I remember right, our total was about like 3,300 per person,
Wow.
including everything, being in Europe for like 15 days. So it was actually very reasonable. Because I mean, the flight there is,
Yeah.
that's probably the most significant chunk, and then the car
Right.
is the second significant chunk. But there's so many gems on Airbnb, honestly, that are really convenient. They're very nice, extremely clean, close to the city. So there's a lot of things that you can do to like kind of cut certain things so that you can spend more on attractions and just the ease of travel.
Right. Yeah. So what were some of your favorite cities or countries that you experienced?
I mean, honestly, it was such a whirlwind. There were so many cool things in different cities. So I would say Bratislava was super cool. And it's very like, I would say untouristy compared to a lot of the other cities that we went to. It's on the smaller side. Um, and I think Slovakia in general just is not a country that's on a lot of people's radar, but it's extremely beautiful. It's very green. I mean, it definitely has the aesthetic of the post, World War II era, the Soviet era, with a lot of apartment buildings that all
Yeah.
look the same, very concrete in terms of like the city, but the countryside extremely green. They have a thriving viniculture
Oh, really?
industry there. Yeah, they produce like it's amazing. They produce a ton of wine and it's delicious. We had a really cool experience in Bratislava where we went to a vinicultural museum, and you can actually, it's really cool. If you've been to a winery and been like in their basement where they sometimes hold like their all of their barrels,
Right.
they have them in like a basement that's like temperature controlled. So that was actually the museum that we went
Oh,
in. It was 2 stories, and in the basement you felt like you were in a wine cave. um, and it was a lot of fun, and you could do tasting, so you
oh,
get like a
nice.
certain number of tastes per hour. And honestly, they had like over 175 wines that you could try
Oh my
just in this
God.
museum. It was so much fun. Like it was so unexpected. We didn't realize until we were already in Slovakia that they had such a thriving wine culture. And so that was definitely an unexpected, fun experience. And then otherwise, I would say Poland was probably our favorite country. Both Warsaw and Krakow they're very different. I mean, Warsaw is incredibly modern. It was like completely bombed out during
Oh,
World War II. So, and then in the years that followed, obviously. So there was a lot. It's very modern. Lots of tall buildings, the streets, everything feels very modern. But it's very beautiful. People are super friendly. We found it really easy to go around. Lots of cool museums. They had like a Chopin museum.
hmm.
Yeah, just like a lot of different experiences. And then Krakow, we also loved. Krakow was mostly not bombed out during the war, which was really cool. So you see a lot of the older architecture, the more traditional architecture. And then obviously going to Auschwitz was probably the most
Yeah.
impactful experience of our trip. We did both Auschwitz and Birkenau, which are actually like separate camps. And when you register to get a ticket, make sure that you get both. We actually didn't
Oh.
know what we had signed up for, but luckily we had signed up for both.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
because Auschwitz and then so the main place where you start is Auschwitz, but then Birkenau is actually where most of like the gas chambers were.
Mhm.
So the like Jews were being brought to Auschwitz on the train, and that's the place that we always hear about in stories or in history. But then they would be brought to Auschwitz and then they would be forced to walk to Birkenau, which is probably 3 to 4 kilometers away. So if you imagine arriving there in the winter and they've taken your clothes and your coats, they've forced you into a shower so that you are now freezing, and then they force you to walk 4 kilometers into like the gas chamber. So it was very impactful. Our guide was incredible. Her grandparents had been in Auschwitz Birkenau and had survived,
Oh my
which was
gosh.
amazing. That was not obviously common for people to survive. So it was very cool. It was very impactful. I would say if you are in Poland and you don't go to Auschwitz, like that
No.
doesn't make sense at all. Like
No,
you should
no.
specifically go to Poland to go to Auschwitz. The Polish people are extremely friendly. Polish food is delicious. If you've had like pierogies, and I mean they have so many good breads, and like yeah, they're fantastic. It's their cities are clean, they're fun, they have a lot of attractions, very easy to get around. Even if you don't know Polish, we did not know
I was just
Polish.
gonna ask about the language. Yeah, if you learned a
Yeah,
little bit before you went, or like
we
the.
did not. We did
Okay.
not. Yeah, we were unfortunately like your average American travelers that, like we know Spanish and French. And we didn't go to any countries where they speak Spanish or French. And so yeah, we didn't know any of the languages. We were able to get on very well. I mean, a lot of the signs, like the street signs are when you're driving, like that's probably the most challenging, just because the names are not names that you're accustomed to, or excuse me, you don't know when the turn is exactly going to be. And everything is in kilometers, so you're like, oh,
Oh
okay, it's
yeah.
3 kilometers, but for us that's very like we don't
Yes.
think in those terms. So we had a lot of like we have to turn around scenarios, but never like where we
Did
were super off track, so
did
that
you
was
use
good.
like a GPS then to help you
Yeah,
navigate?
we had a GPS. We had downloaded off, from Google Maps. So you can download
Oh yeah.
maps and then be able to pull them up offline. So even if we didn't have data, we were able to open Google Maps and use that. So yeah, I would recommend you either need a GPS in the car, or you need, downloaded Google Maps onto a device, just so that you have a way of going along. And then I also would recommend bringing extra cords to charge
Oh.
all your devices, especially with the road trip, because you don't want to die. You don't want your
I
GPS to die in
know.
the middle of the highway.
Right.
So yeah, definitely extra charging cords to make sure that that you can navigate around whenever. But yeah, those were very helpful. But yeah, otherwise the language barrier was not a huge challenge. We're very lucky that so many people, especially in tourist areas, they do speak English. So we were very lucky. Otherwise, we would, just use gestures, or do our best in situations where the other person did not know English. But yeah, we were able to go around pretty easily without knowing any of the native languages.
So when you did the planning, did you kind of plot your route out ahead of time so you could reserve your Airbnbs ahead of time?
Yes. Yeah, we started before we left, we had basically taken care of everything for the first stop. So Berlin, everything was planned before we ever got onto the plane. And then kind of from there we started to build plans. We didn't have everything
Okay.
solidified before we went. I had traveled that way before in Europe and it was really easy.
Okay.
So like in the weeks leading up to leaving for the trip, we were just kind of out of our minds busy. So it actually ended up working. I would only recommend that if you're in an off-season travel though. I would not recommend that. Summer travel in Europe
Oh,
is, very busy. And so I wouldn't recommend not having all the reservations done in advance, but for us, it worked out. We didn't know exactly where we were going to be, partially because of COVID
oh, that's true.
restrictions, and then also partially because we were like the certain attractions that were the most important, like Auschwitz. When we actually went to book that, they were already booked like a week in advance
Oh, okay. Yeah.
because Polish school children also all have to go to a concentration camp, the same way that German school children have to do that. And so actually the most people that were in Auschwitz-Birkenau when we were there were all school kids who were learning about the history of their country.
Right.
So yeah, it was very interesting. So we had to change up our itinerary slightly based on having to choose a different day for Auschwitz. But otherwise, we sort of started planning, 2 to 3 days before we were going to go to the next country. We planned where we would stay, and then, you know, did the logistics for that. But I would say the thing that you just really need the place you're going to stay,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because once
Right.
you get there, you kind of find out like, oh, okay, these are, you have ideas in your head reading guidebooks, reading online. There's so many places to
Yeah.
find advice about TripAdvisor or Viator, or I mean, there's hundreds of sites that will tell you different attractions in different cities. So we kind of looked on there and we knew like kind of what museums or different things we'd want to see. And then we would kind of hone in like the day
Yeah.
before. Okay, these are the things we really want to see tomorrow. We tried to not be like make the planning stressful because I think, as we
Yeah.
all know, travel is less fun when you're stressed out.
Yeah,
So the
exactly.
idea is to enjoy yourself. And so we tried to minimize the stress by figuring out, the logistics for the next day. Okay, this is what we can do. Um, and yeah, that worked for us. But I would not recommend that, like I said, in the summer. I would make sure that you have more more planned out reservations, because you just don't have as much flexibility. But we were in November, and because of the COVID situation, there were just way less tourists
Right. Right.
than in Europe normally. So
Yeah.
because the big draw at that time, or the beginning of, is the Christmas markets,
Oh,
especially in like Germany, and then into a little bit into Eastern Europe where we were. Like the Christmas markets are huge. So the time we were there was the preparation for the
oh,
Christmas markets, and that's actually perfect because there are not as many tourists there at the time, and it coincides with American Thanksgiving. So it was easy for us to go at that time, and I would. It's just less stressful and easier to plan when you're not worried about being somewhere at an exact time
right. Right.
every single day.
Right.
So
So how was the weather that time of year then? Because it is this kind of in between like fall and winter, I guess, too.
yeah, I would say the weather was pretty good for us. We had a couple of like rainy days. I would say it was mostly just like gray and cold. But I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm pretty used to gray and cold. It wasn't anything, that I wasn't used to. But yeah, we had rain jackets, we had, gloves, scarves, hats. We had kind of like face masks that also doubled as keeping you warm. So, because a
Yeah.
lot of places we did have to wear a mask, almost everywhere actually, when except when we were just walking on streets, like the museums, basically every public place expected you to wear a mask. So, um, yeah, we were prepared for the weather, gloves and everything. So we kind of knew what we would be dealing with. But yeah, I think it was very normal for us. If you live in a place that's really warm, then yeah, it would probably be shocking for you. But for us, it was pretty much the same weather we were going to have at home anyway. So that was easy to deal with. But for sure, if you're from a warmer climate, be prepared with gloves, jackets, sweaters, layers, basically, because when you go
Right.
inside the museum, obviously it's very warm. You want to take off your coat. They're awesome, usually with coat check and umbrella checks
Oh,
and
nice.
all that. We just found a lot of the museums were very very tourist friendly, and they want to make your stay in the time in their museum comfortable. So bag checks, coat checks, all that, we encountered that a lot. So yeah, I would say again, if you're from a warm climate, pack maybe long johns, even if that's something
Yeah.
you would normally wear in a colder place. Because it is good to be prepared and then be over prepared and then not need something,
Yeah,
as
that's true.
opposed to trying to find something you need later. Although gloves and scarves are pretty easy to find, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Plus, that's kind of a good time frame, even now that we're post COVID, because you're right, you're kind of right before the Christmas markets. You're kind of
yeah,
right after, I guess, Oktoberfest is done. So,
yeah,
budget wise and just not as many people, it's kind of
yes,
a nice
yeah.
window.
And Europeans would say that's their technical off season. So, they're not charging you the same prices that they would charge you in the summer. Often there's like the summer price and then the rest of the year price. So we were lucky that we had the rest of the year price, basically in everywhere we went. So yeah, it was very convenient. It's very budget friendly. And we found that the tickets were not, the original flight tickets were not too expensive. I think they were like 630,
Wow.
from the Northwest all the way to Berlin. I mean, we had three stops each way, just the logistics of getting there. So the tickets were pretty reasonable.
That is. That's
If
really
you
reasonable.
Yeah, I've paid more to go a much shorter distance. So
Yeah, me
it was very
too.
reasonable. And I think it was because we were leaving, over a week before Thanksgiving and we were coming back over a week after Thanksgiving. So they were not targeting us with the normal like Thanksgiving prices that you would have for American travel. They usually jack up the price around that time. So we
Yeah.
didn't experience that. So that was very nice. But also like, our just timing, a lot of people are taking vacation then. So it was easy for us to make that work.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it sounds like an amazing trip.
Yeah, yeah, it was really fun. I mean, anybody who wants to see that part of Europe, it is so much fun. Like there are so many great places and the people there, they really want to share history with people, with other people. They're very interested in sharing their history. Because I think especially like the Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, I think people overlook the
Yeah.
significant impact that World War II had on them. I think we often focus on Germany,
Right.
and everything that they went through. And yes, there was a lot of tragedy for German people, but there was also a lot of tragedy for every country that is adjacent to them,
Right.
or between them and the like just the geography. The countries are
Yeah.
very small, so a lot of those countries were bombed out or had just like significant war that was happening in their countries. And they were not even really like wanting to be involved
Right.
or like it was just it's very interesting, and it's really important to learn that history, because in all reality, American history classes in high school or even younger, they do not give us all of that information. They do not give us that perspective. And if you listen to like the perspective of like the Polish people, like what they went through is horrific. Um, and it has radically changed their like country's dynamics, because before, Poland was a place that Jews felt very safe. And now if you look at the population dynamics, like it's, less than 5% of people in
Wow.
Poland now are Jews,
Wow.
because they that is no longer feel safe there, right? Like
Right.
they're the descendants, their ancestors left because they did not feel safe, and they've never returned. So that like has
Yeah, that's a
essentially
significant
like
change.
completely changed their culture from the culture that they had in like the early 1900s, or even further back. And so it's just very interesting to experience that firsthand, and to um yeah, just to learn about like the strength of the people, learn all of the things that they did to survive, and then also how they have taken their situation, because after they were being tortured by Nazis, then they were being, they were essentially under Soviet rule for the next like
Yeah,
50
you're
years
right.
after that. And so they were not free, even though they were supposedly free from Nazis. So again, it's really interesting to learn that history, and just to see their resiliency. Um, they're thriving now, which is so cool. Like
Yeah, that is
they've
very
been through so
cool.
much hell and they're thriving, and that's really cool. And we should celebrate that,
Oh,
because it's
definitely.
yeah,
Definitely.
it's an awesome story to learn about. So yeah,
Yeah. How do you feel about I'm sure the foods and everything. I mean, the cities have changed even who's living
yeah.
there, maybe what's kind of was traditional has now changed. Did you see a mix of restaurants? Was everything kind of, talk about that a minute.
Yeah, they're, I mean, amazing food options. I would say in every country, yes, there were like traditional restaurants, or restaurants that would highlight like the regional cuisine. But honestly, you can find like everything in all of these cities that we were in, except for maybe Eager, because that's, excuse me, a very small town. So
Okay.
you don't have as many diverse options there. But yeah, honestly, anything you want to have. I mean, like literally any food you can imagine eating at home, you can eat there. And you can also, there's a lot of fusion.
Oh, interesting.
So like maybe it's a like Polish Asian fusion, and that's really fun too.
Oh, that's
Because like
really
pierogies
different.
with like chili sauce is also cool.
Yeah.
And not necessarily something you would find in America. So yeah, it's really cool. I would say we had so much fun, like trying different foods. And we had a lot of food restrictions, so I wouldn't say we were as adventurous as we could have been um with our foods. But yeah, we definitely had a lot of fun, lots of cool restaurants, and lots of cool people that want to share their culture through food, which is really cool. If you look up on like a lot of the you know like tourism sites, they'll say like gastronomy is really important to
Yeah.
them, and it's definitely visible. And they make it very easy. Like that's the one thing that I love about traveling Europe. They let you know exactly what all the allergens are,
Oh,
and
that's nice.
the ingredients. And a lot of the places, you can choose places that only use regional ingredients, and that's really cool. I feel like it's something we're starting to do in America, but we're a little behind. My area is particularly good at it, so I'm kind of used to it in the Northwest. But I know a lot of other places in America, like they don't tell you what the additives are in your food,
Right.
or
Right. Or you have to
yeah,
ask, and then
you have to ask.
right. And if you don't ask, yeah, they're just so in the mindset of like, especially like dairy or some of these things that
Yeah,
people are significant, have issues with. And then they
right.
don't, you get into parts of the United States where they still haven't really thought of that and have options. But like you said, that's
Right.
interesting in Europe that they're completely open and have options and tell you what's in the food. And
Yes, yeah, they are like legally required to tell you. So the
mm,
restaurants have everything marked. There's a code system for if it has dairy, eggs, yeah, eggs, dairy, gluten, like fish, peanuts. I mean, all of the, I would guess I would say like top 10 allergens. All of those are marked on a menu, and it's just very freeing to have that option whenever you're out.
right, right. So do you have last thing, do you have tips for traveling with a friend? Because sometimes people, you're spending a lot of time
Ooh,
together, and if
yeah.
maybe you haven't traveled with this particular friend, do you have tips for surviving the trip, so to speak, and making it, you want to come home with, you still want to be friends when you get home.
Yeah,
So,
you still want to be friends. Yeah, I would say definitely take a shorter trip. My friend that I traveled with, we had traveled, several times together, many times together, and never for this long, not for 2 weeks, but for like a week or 5 days. So we knew that we were compatible, in terms of our style, and how we like to travel. I would say yes. Like if you are someone who wants to be like busy on the go, see lots of things, then match with someone who is also
yeah,
like busy on the go, wants to see lots of things. And then also I would say don't be afraid of getting like two rooms. Like instead of, in a hotel, like don't get the double beds, just get separate rooms. That way you have time at night to decompress or do your own nightly routine or your own morning routine without them being in your space, or rent an Airbnb where you have separate rooms. So you have some amount of separation of like, okay, I'm going to go into my room now
yeah,
and,
yeah,
have time for yourself so that you don't feel overwhelmed by being with someone all the time. And then also, it's okay to say no. Like, if they want to go out for dinner, it's like, okay, I don't feel like doing that right now. I'm going to let you do your thing. That way you just kind of respect each other's boundaries, for when you're tired or whatever that looks like. But we were very lucky that we knew that we were compatible, and that we had done enough traveling to know we would do well together. But yeah, for sure that's a consideration if you haven't traveled with your friend for a long period, or if you just have very different like styles of living. Like for example, I like to drink coffee in the morning. My friend doesn't really drink coffee that much, and so that was one thing she was willing to compromise, that
yeah,
like occasionally we would stop by a coffee shop, or we would buy coffee to have like a cold brew or something, and that was very kind of her. And then I was also willing to compromise on other things, like she likes to be like out the door at 8 o'clock, and that's not my preferred time. I'm like to go out and see things, but obviously there's some compromise
yeah.
of what time you're going to be out the door, and kind of the pace of your day. So it is something to think about. I would just always think like they have the best of intentions and it is not personal, right? They're also trying to make the most of the trip, and so there has to be some give and take with that.
Yeah. So where to next?
Ooh, I would say right now, my partner and his family, we're gonna go to on a cruise to the
Oh, wow.
Caribbean,
Oh,
which I
wow.
have never been to the Caribbean, so I'm pretty excited for that. And then I think we have a trip with my family to Hawaii, so lots of good opportunities. But the best time of year in the Pacific Northwest is the summer. We have great summers, so lots of camping, adventures, things like that over the summer. We like to go hiking and get outside because
Yeah.
it's so beautiful in our area during that time. So lots of little trips over the summer, and then big trips come the fall. So yeah, we have a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Kelsey, for sharing about the road trip today. This has been really, I've never been to these areas, so this is really interesting.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I could share, and thank you so much for having me on. It was awesome. And if anyone has any questions they want to ask me, feel free to connect with me on social media. On Facebook, I'm at Kelsey Atwood. On Instagram, I am at Kelsey Atwood. And so, yeah, feel free to reach out or send me a DM. I'm happy to answer any questions about,
Oh
what we
yeah,
did or the
exactly.
logistics.
I think too about some of the Airbnbs or little towns too that you might have been. So Instagram would be a great place to see your photos, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
So
Happy to
the
share all of my experiences with anyone who has questions.
so the Instagram again was, I'm sorry.
At Kelsey Atwood.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelsey. It was great to chat today.
Thank you. See you later.
See ya.